Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode on Talk Everything Education, where we'll be looking at the impact of COVID on the health and well-being of educators and students. Because we now know at this time, educators and students are actually going through a lot of challenges. And we also know that the education institution cannot effectively support educators for them to support their students, because in some of the schools that I've been working in, there might be 1,000+ students and you have two counselors. So we know for ourselves that's not enough. And as educators, we also know that we are the first line of contact. When the students have any issue, they don't even think of going to the counselor, they come straight to you. So as educators, we need some tools to effectively address the students' issues in terms of their health and well-being, and also to support ourselves. Because right now the students are going through what I constantly say to them is, it's like a grieving process. It's like the anxiety, the frustration, the annoyance, and it's grief. If you look at the different stages of grief, that's exactly what the students are going through and the educators are going through. And right now, I'm in the UK and we are back on a lockdown, but it's a very different lockdown. It's a lockdown where, some industry are closed, but education is still open, because I think the government realized that there were so many issues when they had the complete lockdown, because in terms of increasing mental health issues, increasing suicide rate, that actually is on the rise. Because during the class, I have some students, when I spoke to them when they came back after the lockdown, some of them even considered suicide. So all this is increasing our awareness of this is bigger than we thought. And it's a real issue. It's real issue, because we need to look at what the children are not saying to us. We need to look at the unspoken behavior pattern. Because as educators, I noticed my students in one of the classes last week, all they're doing is just chat, 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 chat on the mobile phone, chat, chat, chat. But I have to take a different stand in terms of discipline, because I realized this is not normal. I needed to look at it. Okay, as much as I'm saying to them, come on, we need to go through this, but at the same time, I'm conscious that they are trying to express themselves, because it's like a bottleneck trying to explode. So I have two, oh my goodness, I'm losing my train of thought. I've got two guests on the platform. I've got two of my guests from around the world, one educator and one psychologist. So can you please introduce yourselves and tell us where you come from?
Absolutely. Debbie will say that that's a side effect of teaching virtually.
It is.
It happens to me all the time. My name is Osa Oyegun. I'm an international educator currently teaching in Abuja, Nigeria. I've taught in several different countries, in Germany, in the US, in Turkey, and Dubai. And at present, I'm teaching 7-year-olds in the second grade, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
And I am Parnasha. I am from India. And as Debbie said, I'm a clinical psychologist. And, being a clinical psychologist from a small town in India, I have to, attend to people of all ages, starting from, 1-year-olds to, 85 and even more. So there has been a lot of, children coming in right now. And even after the lockdown started over here, I had to shift to online counseling. And, many parents have been coming to me saying that, their children are facing a lot of issues. They have become naughty, they are not studying, they are not getting adjusted to the online teaching methods. And, losing touch with friends has been really tough on them.
Yeah, and thank you for that. That's one of the things people don't seem to realize, because we are social beings, and I keep on saying that in all my platform. We are social beings, especially young people. Young people do not know what it is like to be contained. And what this situation now have done is contain these young people, and they do not know how to deal with it because they're so used to doing what they want, when they want, and how they want to do that. And now we're saying to them, okay, you cannot do this and you cannot do that. Could you imagine the frustration and the anger, the resentfulness? It's like all of that. It's like a whole stage they're going through. And one of the questions I keep on asking is, do we feel that educational institutions are able to cope with the increase in mental health issue, both regarding the educators and the students? What are your thoughts on this? Let's take the educator. Ocean.
I think that is a very good question. I think the pandemic caught schools by surprise, and in fact, all industries by surprise. And I think some were more prepared than others. And what it's done is really show where there are gaps in preparedness. And of course, we see the gaps in schools. And in a school where if there were previously no counseling sessions where students learn strategies and tools with which to keep themselves healthy, their social emotional health, then all of that becomes really obvious and apparent. We were talking before the session about our children and how the pandemic has affected them. And I really like what you said about people being social beings, because it's true at every level, at every age. No matter how introverted or extroverted a person is, we miss being around other people. I'm an introvert myself, and I miss having physical contact with my friends and family. I miss social gatherings, cooking dinner for people and talking, all of that. And I notice in my nearly 2-year-old daughter, I worry about her development because she was meant to have started school and to learn all of those social skills and playing with other children. And I see the same thing in my students, in that the skills that they would have learned by being at school and watching each other and watching their teachers, they are still trying to learn those skills. Mm-hmm. And so we weren't ready last year in March. And my students really missed out on having counseling sessions, people to talk to. And of course, as an educator, I did the best that I could. Mm-hmm. And I wonder whether this is something that could come out of the pandemic, that schools realize this should be something that every school should integrate into their curriculum, not just morning meeting and share about your weekend and, talk to your teacher if you can or if you want to, which is always what we do anyway, but a whole school curriculum for socio-emotional health at a deeper level, one that works no matter how the delivery. And I think that's something that every school is working on right now. How do you keep your community mentally healthy?
That's very true. That's very true. Education psychologists?
Over here, no, in India, the structure is such that we have two different kinds of schools. One is sponsored by the government, and the other is, owned by private organizations. And the culture that is there in the schools are very different in these two sectors. So usually in those private schools, some of them have, counselors and therapists present in the campus, but not all of them. So over here, kind of, mental health is like the second priority thing. It's only when there is an emergency that they seek counseling or support, and there is still a lot of stigma attached with it. Whenever people even seem to know me, they are like, how do you know her? She's a psychologist. Have you been to her? So are you mad? Or that kind of a thing is there. So with the lockdown and everything, it was difficult for us also as therapists to move from an offline platform to an online platform, because counseling is such a, intimate process when we have to actually see and, feel the emotion of the person sitting in front of us. But then again, I had to take up emergency cases even during the lockdown. What I found was, with all the mask and the face shield and the PPE kit, it was more difficult. Online was better because I could see the face of the person, which wasn't covered with a mask anymore. But children find it difficult to interact in an online platform and open up, suddenly to a stranger like that. So if there is somebody who's there, somebody known to the child, somebody in the school system that the child is, comfortable going to, that will be a, bigger help to the children.
Yeah, because that's the reason why I said when I opened the session that educators we are the first line of contact for these children, because we make the referral to the counselors or the therapists in most cases, because the children are coming to us to unload. Because sorry, we actually also read in the body language. And unfortunately, it's only some educators that are in the know. Not all educators are in the know, because not all of them have gone through psychological training or wellness training or emotional training. So some of them not even able to identify that there's an issue with the student. Because when I actually went to that particular school, when I asked the students, has anybody spoken to you guys about how you are feeling? No one have done that. And that was 3 weeks into the session. And for me, when I came in, I realized that there were behavior issue, they were on the phone, they were doing all sorts. And I was thinking, oh my goodness. And then when I actually put it out, I realized that nobody have asked them how they felt and they wanted to talk. There were a lot of tears. And one of the plus for me was, yes, there's a lot of stigma attached to people going into counseling or seeing a therapist. But what was really good was some of the students, they were quite open in saying that they actually seek counseling. And one of the plus was, in one of my classes, I had one young man, and he felt okay to say that he was feeling suicidal and he was feeling depressed. And it was so lovely to see he was able to open up in a class full of females, because this is a very unusual setup. Men don't discuss these things. They don't say anything. And the fact that he was a young man and he was able to say that, I had to say to him, very well done for that. And the female in the class were really accommodating. So that was really good, because he wanted to talk. And he also ended up crying. So that had so much. They have so many issues. And one of the questions that have always been bugging me in terms of what can we do and how can we help educators? Because we need help. I personally am okay because, I know in terms of tools, but I also know colleagues that need help. Because one of my colleagues on Friday, when I say to her, how was your day? Every day I'm saying to her, okay, what is your win? On Friday, she said to me, my win is I got through the day, and that was enough for me. I just about got through the day. And that's quite sad.
That's true. How can we support educators? I think first and foremost, do educators ask for help? I think there is some stigma attached to that, and there is some fear on the part of educators, in terms of thinking, if I ask for help, then it looks like I don't know what I'm doing. Then I look incompetent, and I cast myself in a negative light. And I hope that that is not very widespread, because the opposite is true. Asking for help means that you can turn to a colleague and support each other, especially in these times, when you can plan lessons together and take a load off of that, because everyone knows that planning during a pandemic is taking twice as long as it normally would. Many of us are teaching both virtually and in person, and that's a lot of stress because you're planning for different modes of delivery. So I think asking for help is the first thing that educators can do. And then on the part of administrators, just looking at the needs of their community and finding concrete ways of supporting their teachers, whether it's in giving them more planning time, more protected planning time, because everything's taking longer, whether it's in providing services for self-care, whatever it is, finding concrete ways of supporting their educators so that they have systems in place that will carry them through everything that is going on.
Mm, 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 mm.
You
Yeah.
know, there is something very interesting because as you mentioned that educators are the first line of contact, and people, children generally go to their teachers to talk about their problems. However, you know, sometimes the teachers themselves get affected when they listen to the problems
Mm,
because they don't know how to support the child at that moment. And teachers are very emotionally connected to the class that they teach,
mm,
and it affects them a lot.
mm,
People with a background in psychology, I think it is easier for them because even when we started our training process, the first few patients really did affect us. And we would go on thinking for days on end and like, what will happen to this child and how will he manage and everything. But with teachers, the connection is so intimate. And then when this person that they know so closely comes up and shares a problem, and then there is only a limited thing that a teacher can do. If the parents are very accommodating and they want advice from the teacher or from the school, then it is very good. But if not, then the teachers feel very helpless at that time.
mm.
Am I
That's
right?
that
So
is
very true.
absolutely true. That's
Spot on.
absolutely true. Yes, and well, that's another thing. So then, how do teachers get out of that mindset? Because you're capable. What you can't help the students in that moment. So how do you convince yourself of that? That's another tool or another strategy that every teacher needs.
Mm, mm,
So I think there needs to be a counselor, not just for the students, but also for the teacher. And there needs to be, you know, proper, like we have these subjects in school, physics, chemistry, biology, and everything. We need to have mental health as a subject.
yes, 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 yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because more and more and more we're seeing there is a need for that, you know, in terms of for the students to find tools to help themselves and for the educators to also support themselves and the students. And one of the things that I find that educators are not being supported enough with is self-care and self-love. Because a lot of educators, they're forgetting themselves in all of this because they're so busy preparing, marking, and doing all of that that they're forgetting, okay, this is for me. Because for me, my experience is I went into the classroom on Wednesday and I had to cover a class. And because I got in and I was rushing, I felt so overwhelmed. And I'm thinking, hold on, why are you feeling overwhelmed? You know, yes, you're supposed to be covering a class. If you get delayed, so what? And I had to constantly talk to myself to reduce my anxiety because I realized I was getting anxious. On a normal condition, I couldn't really care less, but that time I just felt so overwhelmed. So could you imagine other educators feeling overwhelmed on a daily basis?
Absolutely. But I like what you did there. It's something I do as well, that positive self-talk where you talk yourself out of
Yeah,
that anxiety that you're feeling,
yeah,
and that helps you to realize that it's not that big of a deal. It's not an
exactly.
emergency. It's not
Yeah,
an urgent situation.
yeah,
That's something I do too. And of course, you know, when you feel that anxiety, it takes it really affects the rest of your day.
mm,
It affects how the rest of your day goes. So, um, yeah, there's several different things that I think educators can do because we're so busy. You know, just taking even 5 minutes and doing a check-in with yourself. How am I feeling right now?
yeah,
How's the day going? Am I very tired? Do I need a break? And a break could look like, I don't know, getting a sip of water, just drinking a cup of water, because especially now, walking around in masks when you're teaching face to face, you can go the entire day without taking a water break. So just listening to yourself, to your body, and trying to figure out what you need to do in that time. Another thing I like to do is I make a list and I try to accomplish maybe 2 or 3 things on that list. And then I feel like I've done what I set out to do for the day. And I can go home and enjoy my evening with my family, and not try to accomplish everything on that list. Because the fact is, the work will be there tomorrow. The students will be there tomorrow. I can't do my job effectively if I'm not taking care of myself in some small way on a regular basis. So just little things that educators can do to care for themselves, they pay off in the long run.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there in terms of, the basic things. It's like sometimes it just means just sitting in silence. Something I do a lot with my students, because I also benefit from it. We do meditation. When they walk into my class, I have classical music for them, but it's for me too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've done that too.
It's for me too, because when they walk in on Friday, they say, "Oh, Miss, you play classical music. You have taste." I said, "Yes." I said, you guys need to settle. But that was for me, because I felt there was some anxiety there. And I said to them, "Okay, let's do some meditation," because I had a double lesson. I was thinking, oh my goodness, a double lesson, After that, I said to them, "Okay, let's dance." Miss, I said, "Forget it. We just dance, right? It doesn't matter. Let's dance." This children must have thought that this woman is mad, right?
But they enjoyed it.
Of course they did, because when I actually had them sit down after that, I had the brains, because the brains came back to me, because before that, the students' brain left them. Yeah. But the minute you actually do something else that get the blood flowing, etc., they became different students. So that was a plus for me, because I needed my sanity and I needed to breathe, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as a psychologist, what are what would you be saying to us?
There is one strategy which I keep suggesting to everybody, which I myself also practice in my life. And that is, every 1 hour, I take a pause. We all have mobile phones with us nowadays, and we can set an alarm. And every 1 hour, we need to take a pause. We need to just look at our environment, and we need to be thankful about the things that we have, about the abilities that we have. And the whole day we are just thinking about what we don't have and what we didn't do. Instead of focusing on that, if we just take a pause, take a break, and even the fact that you mentioned, or that Debbie mentioned, that you were feeling very anxious, that is something that most people don't realize. They don't realize that they are anxious. They don't realize that they are getting overwhelmed. It's only when it is a big problem and things get out of control, it is only then they start thinking about that something needs to be done. But if there is a tiny pause, we put a spotlight on ourselves every 1 hour, we can monitor our own mental health status, and we can take actions depending on what we are feeling. And also, I just remember this one incident about, when I was a kid and I was in school. So there was this new teacher who had come to teach us. And this person came in and he started teaching us. And we felt so angry and unhappy and violated, because he didn't even ask our names. We don't matter to him.
Oh my goodness, that is so.
So it is these tiny things, the tiny things make differences in the lives of children. Just asking them, how are you doing today? They can open up so much. Or tell me 2 good things that happened to you. Tell me 2 good things that could have been better. And even asking ourselves at the end of the day that what are the good things that have happened throughout the day? And how many lives did I actually touch? So it can bring a meaning of meaningfulness in our lives. And everything has to be done, very mindfully, because we are here now. We might not be there the next day. Anything can happen. Especially with this pandemic situation, there is a death anxiety in most of us. So we need to be, it doesn't matter how many years we are on this planet. What matters is the moments that we are going through, the moments we are living. So we need to cherish each and every moment. Like the chat that I'm having with you today, I'm really cherishing it, cherishing the moment, because I'm feeling very happy that I'm being able to share my thoughts with you two, and with other people listening in. So we just need to be thankful. That is the best strategy that I myself use, and I also suggest to all the people who come in touch with me.
That is such a great idea,
It
Parnasha.
is.
Can you lead sessions at my school every week? I really
Yes.
like the way you put it.
Yeah, it's just really, and then the fact that when some educators go in, they don't even ask the students, and that is so important. That is so important. It's like I was saying to someone, I think it was yesterday, because the school I'm in a private school, and it's a new school because I've only just started that school about 5 weeks ago. And it was interesting because the student was saying, oh, how much they like me, etc. So it's Debbie's fan club. So I've got a group of students, and they say, they've actually have Debbie's fan club. They actually wrote it on the board, all of that. And I say to them, what's going on there? Because you see, what I do with them is very unusual. They're not, this is not something they've done in terms of the dancing, the music, the quotes on the board, because when they actually walk into the classroom, there's a quote on the board, and I'm saying to them, okay, I want you to take that quote with you in your head all day and think about it. One of them said to me, no, when I look at the quote, I remember you. I said, no, forget about me. You need to think about the quote and how you are going to use it, etc. So it is so important. We really do make an impact on these children's lives, a lot more than we could even imagine. One of the other questions I want to ask in terms of boundaries, I also feel one of the things that increases mental health issues for educators is their inability to effectively set boundaries and stick to the boundaries, right? Because what is happening is they're actually falling into everybody's expectation of them, but not their own expectation of themselves. And that is something I feel is so important, because too often we are following other people's expectation of us. And when we cannot fulfill those expectations, it then leads to anxiety, it leads to stress, it leads to a whole lot of mental health issues. And one of the things I keep on saying, because I've been thinking about it, how can we as educators be encouraged to set boundaries and stick to those boundaries when we set them? Psychologists.
There is another strategy which is very useful, when it comes to setting boundaries or even taking up tasks that we actually have to do. I call it the urgent important chart. So let me explain the chart to make it more understandable. I ask people to write down the things that are very urgent that they have to finish that day, which is very urgent. There is some deadline or something, and they write it down. And then there is another column where they put in things which are very important that needs to be done. So they again give marks depending on how urgent the task is and how important the task is. Usually what happens is people keep focusing on the urgent tasks and not doing the important things. And there is always this sense of I'm not doing enough, or there is so much that I have to do. And what is important is it's not just the work that they do, it's taking care of themselves, it's working out, it's giving time to your family. Those are also things which come under the important chart. So if there is a marking that they give, and then slowly one after the other they keep finishing the tasks which are urgent and important, higher marks on urgent and important both. And if they move slowly, it is much more easier, taking up one task one at a time. And then when it comes to setting boundaries, the first boundary that they need to set is the work life balance. because as you were mentioning that you all are having to work, twice as much as you used to previously, because there are two different kinds of classes that you need to plan. You can't forget about your family also, because they also need you, right? You also need you. You yourself need you. How much time are you giving yourselves? So there are rules that we need to set about the time. If we fix up the time, say for example, I'll give 10 hours to my work, I'll give 2 hours specially to my child, I'll give 1 hour to my husband, and if you can divide the time, then life will become much more easier, and there will be a balance and the boundaries will be maintained. And post-its can be stuck everywhere to remind ourselves about the timing.
I really like that idea, Parnasha. I think I mentioned earlier on that I tend to make lists for myself, and I look at what everything I have to accomplish the whole week, and then every day I'll choose the 2 or 3 things that I need to accomplish that day. But for me, something I realized was that all the technology used was causing me even more anxiety. For example, like getting a notification ding on my phone, just that ding, ding, ding all the time. So now I keep my phone on silent most of the time, unless I'm expecting a phone call. I've also removed my email, my work email from my phone, because that's something that many educators do. They're like, so I can respond. And there's no need for me to have my work email on my phone. And once I did that, it made it so much easier for me to separate, having to check my emails from my personal device. And I also set I set limits on when I can receive emails in my inbox. Because I found that I needed a second step to remove my work email from my telephone, and 2, to maybe limit the number of emails I receive every hour, because that was also causing me anxiety. We receive more and more correspondence now, and I needed to find a way to manage it without having to sort of force myself to remember not to go and check my email. But if the messages aren't delivered into my inbox, then I have nothing to be anxious about. So I think finding ways around how technology affects me is something that's really worked for me. And then just setting limits, like you said, on the work tasks that I have to accomplish on a regular basis. And I'm still struggling with the giving time to myself, but I'm working on it.
It's interesting though, I do not open work emails at home. It's like when I went in last week and when I rush into the classroom, I'm meant to check to see who I have to cover and what some of our lessons are. I thought, what, forget that. I am not checking it at home. I do not even have it log on into my home. So one of my colleagues was saying to me, oh, one of the things you could do is have your email on your phone. I said to him, no. Because you see, when you have this email on your phone, right? Every minute you're checking this to see what other things that you're supposed to be doing.
It's compulsive.
Right? I don't want that, because it just adds to anxiety and stress. Absolutely. I don't need the anxiety and stress.
Absolutely.
So when I get into the room, when I go into my office, yes, there's a little bit of anxiety because I don't know what I'm covering. That's fine. Let me deal with it when I get to the premises. There's no need for me to look at it at home. No. And I keep on saying to educators, because one of the things I do, I also coach female educators. And something I've said to some of the educators, one of them said to me that she was off sick and she had to look at her email. I said, what for? I said, you're sick, you at home. So why are you looking at your email? Oh, because I don't know if there is something urgent. Really? If it's urgent, it's gonna stay, right? So it's like getting educators to actually identify boundaries. And Parnasha, what you say, I love that, because it means that, you need to start putting times on things. Time is so important, because educators, they have no boundaries. They just go in it. And it's like they're constantly on the phone. I'm looking at my colleague, right? She's on the email. She's checking on her phone. I say, really? I say, hell no. I say, you know what? Forget that. Because you see, and the more she checks, the more she's stressed, right? That's no good.
I
We
think
don't
what
need
happened
that.
is that we've been conditioned to work
Yeah,
this way. You
yeah.
know, it's not a profession in which we are encouraged really.
Oh,
That's
Some
the
network issue,
condition,
I think. Yeah.
you're frozen.
the condition for which we can do. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing
Yeah.
you now. You were frozen just now.
Sorry, this is the internet in Abuja. I was saying that educators are encouraged to do their very best, but it's quite seldom that the conditions under which we can perform at our very best and make sure we're caring for ourselves exists simultaneously. And I think we all have I'm hoping that we all have a level of self-awareness now that we realize that in order to do our very best, we have to first care for ourselves.
Yeah.
Sort of put on the oxygen mask on ourselves before we try to put it on others, as they say.
Exactly.
Exactly. But sadly, you still have some educators that haven't got there, because I'm still reading in some of the groups, where educators saying, they have lost the passion for teaching, because they're doing so many things. So I had to go in there and write a long passage on that in terms of boundaries, because when we actually set boundaries and we stick to the boundaries, it means that it reduces our anxiety and the expectation, because that's something educators need to actually know. Okay, you need to run your life in terms of teaching as an office, right? At a certain time, the office door is closed. So which means that that's your time now. Because if you're going to be constantly on it, it means that where are you in all of this? And I must say, I refuse to constantly be on it. No, I refuse to, because it means that every single thing you think about is education. There's no separation.
There is something, which I wanted to ask you too, in fact. How are you meeting friends right now? Because friends are a very important part of our lives, right? What about your social lives? How are you doing that?
Good question. Zoom, good old Zoom. Everything is on Zoom, right? The Zoom parties.
It's true. Well, actually, Debbie and I were talking about this group that we both found for educators, and it's been a breath of fresh air because I've made so many new friends from it. But besides this group, yeah, I have other mini groups. I chat with my friends on a regular basis, or we send each other voice messages, or we have video chats. The friends who also have children that we can't see right now, we have Zoom chats so that my daughter can see her friends, and so she's not, estranged from them essentially. So she still gets to recognize them. And then the people we have here, my father lives in the same city. We try to have visits, masked visits, of course, because we don't live in the same household. Yeah, but I know it's really hard for everyone else. Debbie, do you do anything else different that I haven't tried yet?
Well, no, because the thing is, my sister lives next door, so it's like in and out. And in terms of friends, I have not seen any friends in the physical. I see them on the Zoom.
Yeah.
And even next week, next 2 weeks, my friends from university who we tend to meet up once every 3 months, we meet, we go for dinner, etc. We now arrange a Zoom meeting, all this, because there's no other avenue than this wretched Zoom. Is like Zoom overload. That's how it's beginning to feel to me. It's a Zoom overload.
Absolutely. Absolutely
Yeah.
true.
Okay. What tips could we actually I want us to identify at least 3 to 4 tips that we could that we use for ourselves, or we want to use for ourselves, or we think is a good idea, that we could actually give to educators. Because first of all, they need to look after themselves in order for them to look after the students. And that's something we as educators who are aware constantly have to be drumming into the educators who are not aware and who are not taking it seriously and who are being burnout, because there's so many educators are heading on the burnout heap because they are not consciously aware that, okay, I need to take some time for me. It doesn't matter if it is just walking outside for 5 minutes. It means that you have switched off and you're just changing the atmosphere. That is so important, because when you come back, some things that you've been passing for days you've never noticed, all of a sudden you've noticed it because you're much more aware of your surrounding. So that's something, you know, we need to identify what tips could we give educators to support them on this challenging journey that they're all going through. Okay, who's gonna kick off?
Well, I'll go first. I think first and foremost, find someone to talk to, whether it's a doctor, whether it's a friend or family member, just someone you can talk to honestly about how you're feeling on a regular basis. Second, set limits on your daily workload. That way, you'll have the time to care for yourself, to check in with yourself, and to be with your family. And third, find a creative venture. This is what I find has really, really helped me the most, is that as soon as we switched to distance learning, I suddenly had the mental space to put into action things that I'd been wondering about. And that has really helped to keep me not mentally tough, so to say, but it just keeps me going. So find something creative that you like to do and do it on a regular basis. No matter how little time you spend doing it, I promise it will help you feel better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So the few things that people need to do, like not just educators, but this is certain tips for everybody, but especially since we are talking about educators. First is you need to put a spotlight on yourself and monitor yourself. It's very important to monitor how you yourself are feeling, whether you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious or stressed or happy or pleased with yourself or anything. That is the first thing. Only through awareness can you take steps. So that awareness is very important. Second is meditating. Now, meditation is not easy for everybody. So there are certain things that people can do. What is meditation? Meditation is basically an effort to control your thoughts. So even if somebody is coloring a picture, that has the same effect on the brain that a session of meditation can bring. So there are various strategies, like playing games like join the dots and stuffs. Those kind of games also have that calming effect. Doodling on the paper and anything like that. Third is people need to, as Osa was saying, people need to get in touch with their friends, with their families, somebody to talk to, somebody to open yourself up to. And the fourth strategy and the most important strategy is be thankful. Be thankful of whatever you are doing, whatever you are giving. And along with that, an extra tip, that is learn a new thing every day so that life doesn't get stagnated. When you're learning something new, you are putting your creative energies, your the childish energies that is present inside you, you are putting it into action, and you'll feel fresh and new, and you'll feel that you are useful and not doing the same thing day after the other day.
Yeah, I really agree with what both of you have said. And something I keep on doing a lot is walking in nature, because I feel when you actually just, because one of the things I do in the morning is I from the bus stop, because I'm on public transport, to the school is 10 minutes. It's a proper 10 minutes walk, and I'm actually running. And it's really good because when I get there, yes, I'm a bit tired, but it's fantastic, looking at nature, looking at the trees have yellow leaves. And, when I'm going back home, I'm thinking, oh, that tree had a lot of leaves when I was going this morning, and it's lost all the leaves, So I'm talking to the trees, I'm talking to myself. It makes such a difference because it's like a renewed energy. And I also feel that we need to start being childlike again. Right, we need to start playing. That's one of the reasons why I say to the students, let's dance. And they say, Miss, I cannot dance. Yes, you can. You are not performing. You're not, you're not in a dancing competition. You are dancing to release the energy and just dance and just dance. It doesn't matter. Be childlike again. Do things that you would have done as a child and just enjoy it. If it means just giggle, if it means just run. What I did with another group of students, they thought I was mad. I said to them, come on, we are going outside. And they said, where are we going? I said, we're going for a walk around the school. So we actually jog around the school and we walk around the school. It was fantastic because they were just laughing, and it does make a difference because when they went back into the classroom, I felt as if they were much more tuned on. Because even though, one of them said, oh, but Miss, we lose 10 minutes. Yes. You've lost 10 minutes, but you gain a lot more because when you come back, your brain is so refreshed that you guys just started to walk without stopping because you renewed the energy because you got rid of all the stale energy you had in your system. And it was important that you go out. So one of the things I constantly encourage is be childlike again, do things that children do, because next to one of my classes there is the nursery, and it is so lovely to just see the children. They're just doing childlike things. And art is another thing because you don't have to be an artist to draw. It's like when I'm saying to students, okay, I want you guys to do the presentation, and I say, well, I want you to do art to do the presentation. But Miss, I cannot draw. I'm not interested. Just express yourself through art. Because I teach through my hands and through my body. So I use my hand for teaching. If I'm saying something small, I'm doing this. And I wasn't even so consciously aware of it until the students started pointing it out to me last week. And I was just laughing at it. It was funny. Because some educators, they teach with their body and they teach with their hands. And I'm one of these educators who teach with my body and my hand. So in terms of me teaching on Zoom have been a real challenge. Oh my goodness, sitting at the table on that chair, I'm not able to move. And I'm thinking, no, we need to do something. So, sometimes I say to my class, we need to dance, we need to jump because it is stagnating. It's like putting me in a box because some educators, as I said earlier on, we are social beings and we need to be jumping around the class. I'm not a traditional teacher. I sit on the windowsill. I sit on the chair, on the table in the middle of the classroom. Very unconventional. Some people might say it's unprofessional. Well, so be it. Because I cannot sit behind a desk. It doesn't work for me. So those are the things I get my students to express. It's important because it helps us as educators, and it also helps the students because it shifts their minds to start doing something new. Because the mind operators, when you have a long lesson, when you break the lesson up in small pieces and you start teaching again, it's like something new have started. So which means that you're more likely to remember it. So those are things we need to start looking at. And educators, finally, I want you to set boundaries, not for joke, for real, which means that you have a time to close your office. You switch on your office at a certain time and you switch off. Yes, I know some parents, especially in private school, the parents feel that they're paying for the education, so therefore they should have you on demand. Hell no. Hell no. They cannot have you on demand. So if they have you on demand, what is left for you and what's left for your family? Because these parents don't care, They do not care. So we need to find a way of switching off the office. When office time, we switch off. And it doesn't matter that email needs to be answered. You pretend you don't see that email. You need to leave that email or else you'll never have time for you. Are there any one thing that people want to say before I just wrap up?
I think one thing that'll help educators make these changes that we're all recommending is to remember that we are teaching the students how to be professionals and how to care for themselves. So we are the examples that we're setting for them. If this is how they see the adults in their lives living and working, then that's what they're going to normalize, and that's what they're going to do as they grow older. But if we normalize caring for ourselves and setting boundaries, and I'm very aware of that with my daughter, I try not to be working at home too much. If we normalize setting boundaries and caring for ourselves and spending time with each other, then that's what they're going to do when they grow up.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
And what I would like to say at the very end is I would have loved to have you two as my teachers in school because I think all teachers should be like you know, should have that energy and that understanding. So it was great, you know, talking to you two today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's interesting because I also feel that educators need to remember, first thing, we are people, and then we are educators after, right? We are mothers, wives, parents, sisters, etc. first. An educator is a profession after. We need to start making this separation, because especially when COVID time and educators start demonstrating that they were anxious and they was afraid, people started to attack us. How could you be afraid? We're human beings, you know. We're not robots. So it's a reminder to ourselves and to the students out there, because educators keep on setting up expectations. When a student come and say to me, Miss, do you know this answer? I unashamedly say, sorry, I don't know the answer. Let's find out. I don't work with an encyclopedia in my head, right? Whether or not the students want to feel that I am not a good educator, that's not my business, because I cannot have all the answers in my head. And I constantly say to educators, you need to stop. You don't know, stop pretending you know. You don't know, you're human beings. So when we start being realistic, our life gonna start being realistic. So educators out there, you need to stop, you know, being unrealistic and setting up, you know, on, you know, your unrealistic expectations, because it's gonna come and haunt you. Thank you very much to my guests.
Thank you very much to
Thank you very much to my people out there. And educators, remember, you are doing the best you can, and stop beating up on yourself. Beating up on yourself doesn't solve the problem. It just gives you more bruise. And what it does is you are actually setting the scene for people to treat you in that way. You need to take control of you. Love yourself. Self-love and self-care, very important. It doesn't matter what's happening outside. Self-care and self-love is very important. Thank you very much, everybody. Good evening, good night, good day, wherever you are.
Bye.
And I'll see you guys next week for another show.
All right. Bye-bye.
Right.
Bye-bye.
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 Oh my goodness. As if I can't remember how to switch off my platform.